Through interviews, expert discussions, and narratives, we uncover pathways to resilience, innovation, and evolution. Welcome to All Things Change.
Aloha, everyone. Welcome to All Things Change. We have an exciting podcast this month, and it's exciting because we get to introduce everybody that's been listening into our podcast to our new interim chair for our nonprofit board, Ipo Wright. Aloha, Ipo.
Aloha, Alani. Mahalo for having me.
Yeah, I'm so super excited to have you with us today, but even more importantly, on our board. And I just sort of want to give all of our listeners a little bit of maybe context of how I met you and Doris and I, small kind, tracked you down via social media. But I had seen a video that you had put up on, I believe it was TikTok, talking about the work that you were doing in Seattle and across the nation to bring Native Hawaiians who are not living in Hawaii together. And it just really intrigued me. So many times Hawaii nonprofits are really focused on Native Hawaiians here, which is important. But there are, unfortunately, now, well, no, fortunately and unfortunately, maybe you'll help me sort of talk me through whether it's fortunate or unfortunate that there are more Native Hawaiians living outside of Hawaii than there are that currently reside. And Native Hawaiians leave Hawaii for numerous reasons and go out into the world, not just in America, but actually all over the world, and do amazing things and contribute amazing work. And a lot of them still want to maintain their Native Hawaiian identity and to create community abroad as well. And so I was just so amazed to see your work that Doris and I reached out to you and got to talk story with you about your work. And we were just really looking for ways in which we could partner. But after we got off the call with you, Doris and I both jumped on a sort of rehash conversation, and we're like, I wonder if she would be on our board. Again, because I think sometimes in Hawaii, and in particular for nonprofit, we get so focused on here that, we're not thinking about sort of what's going on with Native Hawaiians outside of Hawaii. And so I love the perspective that you have and that you can bring to our board. And that's a unique perspective, I think. And so I just, again, want to welcome you and invite you to share about some of the work that you're doing across. You're in Seattle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mahalo, Alani. I super appreciate all these words of aloha. It's you and I talked about this before the first time when we met, but just being able to connect with others like you who are doing great work on Aina is amazing. And then being able to also partner and see how we can partner is the whole goal of all of this work, because really what it is about bridging the gap between Hawaii and its diaspora, because we are a lahui, we are one community at the end of the day, no matter where we physically are. And so this is what we're supposed to be doing, is just stretching our arms across the ocean as wide as we can. So
yeah,
I'm so happy to be here, and to, of course, to be on the board of Changemakers. I can bring a little bit of history into how I got into the HD work, and then kind of how that positioned me to think about Changemakers.
yeah. Thanks. That'd be great. That'd be perfect.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. It's like I feel like there's always so much stuff, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, which parts of this should I pull out instead of going all the way back to the beginning? But I usually do start all the way out the beginning,
Yeah.
because it is important context coming from my own story. So my family is from Kauai and from Big Island, and my mom was born and raised on Kauai. I was born on Oahu, but was raised in San Diego. So my siblings and I, when we were still really little, my parents moved us over to California. And so we were raised exclusively over there. However, we were really fortunate to be in a place like Southern California, where there were still a lot of islanders, a lot of access to the culture one way or another, or to each other. And then I got to spend summers in Hawaii as well. So even though I was raised exclusively away from Hawaii, I'm very, very privileged to have the access to each other like I did, because the reality is that so many Hawaiians, especially those who were not raised in Hawaii, don't have that access necessarily. So, and I always say the reason why I share that as well is not because I'm trying to pull like a Hawaiian card,
Right.
but because the context matters, because even though I still had access to the culture, to Hawaii, grew up in a halo, I really, really struggled with what it means to be a Hawaiian for a lot of reasons. And I never truly felt secure in myself and who I am as a person, especially as a Hawaiian person. And so that struggle and insecurity stayed with me throughout my entire life in different waves until young adulthood. And then I started moving around the continent, living in different places where now the demographics were much different than Southern California. And now I found myself in kind of different ways feeling isolated and lonely from what I did have the privilege to have access to. So that's kind of where this little seed was planted in the back of my mind, like getting to meet or trying to find other Hawaiians all across the continent. And we do things so differently depending on the city or the state, hearing a lot of lived experiences. And so it kept raising this question for me of what can we do about that? There's got to be something we can do to help unite us no matter where we are. And this was a really long time ago. So technology was still there, but not like it is today. So it just took years and years of building experience, upskilling for me, both in tech adjacent roles, communication roles, to kind of build all of these, like in the back of my mind, sort of opportunities to eventually what would inform Hawaiian diaspora. So
Mm.
it was just lots of years of trying new things, getting a little bit more secure in myself. And then eventually I landed in a cohort called Kamakainana, which is ran through Purple Maia out there on Oahu. And the whole purpose of that cohort was to do place-based design. So if you want to build for community, if you want to build maybe products or experiences for those in Hawaii that is values aligned, what does it look like to do that? So I was fortunate enough to go through that cohort virtually. And then at the very end, it was this whole ike was like, if you want to take all the stuff you learned and really apply it to a purpose, a mission, something that really excites you, we were encouraged to do that. So finally, everything, all those years and experiences came together. Now that I had more of an infrastructure based on Hawaiian values of how you might design for community, it clicked. And I was like, okay, I think I have an idea for something, which ultimately informed Hawaiian Diaspora. It looked a lot different then when I first pitched it, but I fortunately received a micro grant that actually came from Kamehameha schools
Mm.
to help inform the research that would create Hawaiian diaspora. So that's the whole gist of how this started, which was really 3 years ago.
Wow.
And back then, that was kind of like it was still not really sure. It was still a little tiny baby.
Mhm.
We weren't sure who we were going to be, and now we are working toward receiving a 501(c)(3) status.
Yay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I find it interesting that one of the things you mentioned was sort of like your need to sort of like find yourself in the identity of being Hawaiian. And I don't know if, well, I know for myself, and maybe it's my age, I had that same experience, even though I was born and raised, you know, really sort of like decolonizing and doing a lot of work around that and realizing, while it does matter what I do and the responsibility I have to perpetuate language, to perpetuate values, to perpetuate work, needed to like be comfortable in all that I am and also be comfortable in. I like to say I don't need to wear my Hawaiianness as a design. Being Hawaiian means the good, the bad, the whole nine yards. It means that you are part of this wonderful culture and definitely part of the revitalization into an even more striving and vibrant culture in the modern day. in the modern age. But you can also, you don't have to wear it like either a shield or a badge. It's just something that is you, because unfortunately you're also going to have some of the bad things that go along with it, like high diabetes in your family, high death rates, incarceration rates. I mean, all of those things I've experienced within my family, which are some of the challenges that come along with being Native Hawaiian. And so I just think it's really interesting that even being raised in Hawaii, you can still need to find your identity as a Native Hawaiian. I was
Mhm.
wondering, I know I've had family, I have friends who have been for most part of their lives have been raised away and come back as much as they possibly can. It seems like the more further east you go, the harder it is to come back on a regular basis. I'm guessing because one, the flights are so long, but the other thing is it costs a lot as well. But I notice a lot of my friends and family that live on like the West Coast come home more often and are
Mhm.
more connected, and also because there's a big vibrant community of Native Hawaiians in like California. But I was wondering, what are you finding as far as well, now that you've created this Hawaiian diaspora and you're connecting to Native Hawaiians all over? What are you finding? What are the reasons why they maybe stay where they're at? Yeah, it'd
Mhm.
be interesting to hear from you, because I know didn't you say you did research on that, or you've been wanting to expand and really get an idea about what's going on with Native Hawaiians that do not live in Hawaii?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So first I wanted to touch on a point that you made a little while ago because I absolutely agree. I always say that the Hawaiian diaspora story is actually a Hawaiian identity story. And Hawaiian diaspora, really what we do at the end of the day is support and champion Hawaiians away from Hawaii, or even those with past diaspora experiences. There's a lot of ways we do that, but we talk a lot about identity in the sense of belonging,
Yeah,
which is exactly the same thing that Hawaiians in Hawaii can relate to as well. Those who are born and raised in Hawaii. We have a lot of that we can't relate to, but we also have a lot that is in common
yeah,
between our experiences. So it really does just come down to the effects of history and colonization and generational trauma. We all share that. So like it really is a Hawaiian identity story, honestly, no matter what your experience is. But yes, the research is one of our biggest pillars of work. And that's how this all got started. Really, the idea was, or what I thought the idea was for Hawaiian diaspora a few years ago, was like building a signature program that would be, as I referred to, like an adult explorations. I was
right.
so privileged to go to explorations, and a lot of folks didn't, like out here on the continent. And like I loved it. I still have the ipo that I made and stuck around with me my whole life, which is really one of the biggest goals of explorations. But I kept wondering what it would be like to have something like that for those in the diaspora, or even those of the generational diasporas, what we refer to those who are exclusively raised away. So it started off as that idea. Wow, doesn't that sound so nice? You could have a week long Aina based immersive program. But as soon as I started pitching the idea, because it would take an insane amount of resources and,
Right,
and money, and
right.
the micro grant was 2,500.
Yeah,
So I realized I had to pause and think a lot more slowly and intentionally of what would that require to create this work, should it even be us. So
yeah.
what I ended up doing was instead like putting that to a screeching halt and recommending doing research that would help shape that program.
Mm,
So what I wanted to do was really more so understand, and this was great consult I got from a lot of like my mentors out there in Hawaii, were like, I mean, we could have a lot of great ideas about what a program like that would do, but what is it ultimately that we want to drive as the outcome?
yeah,
And what do people want? What do they need? So that just really changed my whole world and perspective, because I'm like, if you're going to build for people and specific people in needs like Hawaiians, then
yeah,
you really have to understand them. And
right.
the best way to understand them is, of course, having conversations with them, but also like learning from that, gathering that information. And we have always, our kupuna have always been innovators and always believed in being intentional and rigorous. So that became like the cornerstone of all of Hawaiian diaspora, is that no matter what we build, it's based on the actual insights that we have gathered. So where we're at with that right now, actually, is we have collected hundreds of interviews, or I'm sorry, surveys, which we will eventually pair with interviews with kind of like group sessions. Our goal is to create the most comprehensive study on Hawaiians of the diaspora
Right.
there ever was to exist. And the reason for that are a few different things. It's one, to reflect back the experiences and stories and needs of everybody else, so that Hawaiians don't feel so lonely, like somebody can relate to their experience. And then it's also to strengthen community perception. we you were mentioning earlier how in Hawaii maybe the diaspora isn't always thought of, which, like, I see that all the time, and I also agree that it makes sense because, like, folks in Hawaii have so much they have to deal with right there. But when there is an opportunity to kind of consider what's happening and why it matters, which is why we see 53% of Hawaiians now are leaving and trending even greater.
Right.
Well, then what are we going to do about that? And the way that you can help have that conversation and make changes by just showing the information that was
Right.
consensually and ethically given. So that's where we're at. It's really all, pretty much everything we do has been informed by not just the survey itself, but we have lots of ways for two-way communication, which includes a lot of social media.
Yeah.
It means those who have commented on our posts, those who have reached out to us directly in our DMs. Sometimes we do like micro polling on social media, so we'll give some options, and people have the option to like vote in or out. And so we have been consensually collecting this data for 3 years, and we've been spotting trends and where, certain kind of topics come up, and then really leaning into that, because that's what we're hearing directly from
Right.
our community. So it's super important that we're always doing that.
Yeah. That's amazing. I just, yeah, I think I can't wait for that research to come out because I think it's going to be really informative. Because I think we all sit here in Hawaii and we have our ideas about why we think Native Hawaiians move away, right? And most of the time it's cost of living. That's why we think everybody is moving away. But I know in our initial conversation, you were sharing that, sometimes it may be the initial, but then there's other reasons why they decide to stay.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know, like with some members of my family, it's not just cost of living. Sometimes, particularly for older Native Hawaiians, it's about access to better health care.
Mhm.
It's about like being able to access more resources without like the heavy burden of airfare, to travel either between islands or travel to like the East Coast to get more, I guess, critical care.
Mhm.
And so I'm excited to hear like all the different reasons why, not only why Native Hawaiians move away, but maybe why they decide to remain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Kalamai.
Yeah.
Yes. To answer your question earlier, so what the research is telling us right now, overwhelmingly, the cost of living is, of course, like the number one reason that folks aren't returning. And this research, which we will roll out in stages, will give us like a clearer idea of what exactly that means. We all have a really good guess, but we want to be able to back that up with the
Right.
facts. However, it's it's not just that. So obviously, like, finding a job can be difficult, especially compared to making a comparable salary or income that you
Right.
might have on the continent. And that depends on like the kind of job that you're in.
Right.
Some folks, especially if so some of the top cities and states where there are larger Hawaiian concentrations are like on the West Coast or places with a tech industry. So those folks might have less of an option to bring some of their technical skills to Hawaii, since that is a space that also is still being developed.
Yeah.
So definitely the cost, but outside of the cost, there is so much behind like the identity and sense of self that
Right.
we are hearing from people, which includes those more so of the generational diaspora. So they worry more about Do they not understand protocol, or will they have to explain themselves, or will they be able to fit in? We hear that a lot. We also hear that from folks who have returned back to
Yeah.
Hawaii, and especially those who didn't grow up there, is
Yeah.
that their integration into Hawaii for a lot of people was not very smooth
Yeah.
for those reasons. And now with social media, they're sharing their stories, and so it's kind of like this trickling effect of like curiosity for others. What will it be like then for me to return?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned taking care of family, and that is for sure something we hear a lot about,
Right.
especially when you get deeper into the generations. It's really interesting because we don't consider, I mean, there's a lot of reasons as to why, but we don't consider Hawaiians moving away from Hawaii. We don't refer to them as like first generation, or using a lot of the similar sort of terminology as you would like for immigrants of other countries. And but the experiences can be really similar.
Yeah.
And so like the more generations you see who have been away from Hawaii, and it's kind of like time has like added up,
Right.
more of the family is there. So you as one person might feel really pulled to return to Hawaii, but the rest of your family is out here on the continent, and they
Right.
maybe didn't grow up in Hawaii too. So there's a lot of different things that come into play, and we're hearing that verbatim. We're hearing a lot of really interesting
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I mean, I really just think, both, because again, I was born and raised in Hawaii. I've had the experience, and I haven't been really good at it, to tell you the truth, in how would you say, like folding in that first generation of Native Hawaiians coming back home, but who weren't raised, in Hawaii. Most of the time was spent away, and then they come back as adults and they want to contribute. And I feel like I was probably not a good representative, and I felt the rub, you know, and there's just so many things I think that are maybe like cultural norms that aren't like explicitly taught beyond sort of like the protocol. Because I think even Hawaiians growing up in Hawaii get nervous about protocol, right? But like there's just some things that you don't realize you have to explain or to teach to somebody who is Hawaiian, who maybe lived most of their life away, and also maybe was raised in a more connected Hawaiian community away. But there are some unsaid things that happen in Hawaii that you have to like sort of like fold them in. And like I said, when I was younger, I was not the most gracious person around that. And I had like attitudes around it. And I really, again, I thought that was, I needed to decolonize my mind about that. And I've been thinking about, with everything happening in the nation around immigrants, and like looking at how successful immigrants were in Hawaii. And one of the things that their home people wanted when they sent people out and they left was that there was still a connection, and that they still sort of like not just money, but like brains, knowledge, experiences still came back to the home country versus solely being awash someplace else. Anyway, that's a lot to say, but I just been trying to, as I again have continued to decolonize my mind around Native Hawaiian identity, in trying to think about other ways that we can look at ourselves as we move away. Now, my heart is that if Hawaiians go away in Hawaii, then we're not Hawaii. This is no longer Hawaii anymore.
Yes.
It can be
Yes.
Santa Barbara or something. I
It's
mean,
not Hawaii without Hawaiians. And
yeah,
I really want to mahalo you, Olani, because this is something that like is so important for us to acknowledge, is that like it's okay that was a place that you were in before, like because you understand it, you've acknowledged it now. And like we all have like misunderstandings or misrepresentations about all kinds of things, and for some reason when it comes to our community we don't talk enough about that. And it's okay to do that, because that's where we start to work through things. And I think this is what I love about like the parallels between Hawaiian diaspora and change makers, is that like even what you're saying about decolonizing and all of that work. At the end of the day, we're all just doing the best we can
yeah,
in our own ways to take a hugely complex painful situation that we've been dealt and the effects of all kinds of pain, and doing the best we can to really break it down and start to change the systems like piece by piece by piece. And like that's what Changemakers is doing all across of your amazing work, because it's not just one thing. Just like Hawaiian diaspora is not just one thing in terms of like they only need access to culture. It's not just that. It's not also that they just have to come home, because for a lot of people that's when the journey actually starts,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
when
yeah.
they get home. Like there's so many different things. And so change makers, you see that as like, this holistic sort of wraparound framework. That's what I love about change makers, because it's exactly like what we're trying to adopt with Hawaiian diaspora as well. There's so many different things between, even like the work with Philanthropono, I think is so incredible, because like when I think about, well, I'm new to kind of the nonprofit space. I'm learning every single day, and it's such an interesting space because so much of it to me is so inherently like Western,
Yeah,
and it feels so frustrating.
yeah,
And I'm like, there have been times I really wanted to give up, and I'm like, this is just not, it feels like trying to make Hawaiian work, Hawaiian based work in this space, like sometimes just clashes. And so what I love is that Philanthropono is like offering opportunities and frameworks and ways for Hawaiians to like think of it a different way and be able to take up space and like actually make changes in a space that will benefit all of the great work that we're doing.
yeah,
So it's just, it's so interesting, because like you really could just break all of this down and see how we're all just
yeah,
being positioned in our kuleana in different places to do the same thing for
yeah,
each other.
yeah,
And ultimately, my thing is, I'm always trying to say, like, if Hawaiian diaspora is successful, there will be no Hawaiian diaspora. Like, the goal is for that to not exist. Not that people won't still live outside of their ancestral homelands. Like, of
yeah,
course they will. But the
yeah,
key thing here is a to reverse the majority diaspora. I mean, that the 53% statistic we're using is from 2020. Like, and I am sure it's significantly more than that, which is also why we're doing our research, so that we know in real time what's happening instead of waiting every decade.
yeah,
So people are always going to be moving away, but it's the red flag of the majority that we're trying to reverse. And so the work that Changemakers also is doing to keep people home,
yeah,
and not just to keep people home, but to thrive. Like
right.
that's the bridge. That's the bridge right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I believe that in order for us, see, I think, I mean, this is a crazy time, but the other thing I see out there is a lot of amazing Native Hawaiians like yourself doing some amazing work. People who are very like grounded in place and grounded in like cultural practices. And then there's people outside of Hawaii who may have the heart and the ike to ground their work, but they're working in a larger, like you said, like technology or something. They bring those perspectives into those spaces. I would love to see all of that coming together so that we could really create an economy in Hawaii that would benefit everyone.
Hmm.
Of course, first and foremost, my belief is that when Native Hawaiians do well, everybody does well.
Absolutely.
And that really is should be the focus of Hawaii, because when our health is doing well, we're well educated, we have stability with our own money, we have jobs or careers or businesses that like fuel our soil and our soul,
Mhm.
that then that just opens it up for everybody else.
Yes.
And that's what I want to see. And sometimes I think in Hawaii, and not with all Native Hawaiians and not even with Native Hawaiians, but like within our government, we get so feels like uncreative. I saw this university, this U Hero report about our the stagnation of our economy. And so, of course, I go and I look at the end, like what are the recommendations? And, basically all through the thing, they're talking about our dependence on tourism,
Mm.
and then at the end, the recommendation was so uncreative to me. It was like, we need to support the tourist adjacent businesses, and I
Mm.
think, how do we work with like Native Hawaiians in technology? How do we work with Native Hawaiians in business who are employed someplace else and are learning all different kinds of new systems in order to work with people who are connected to Aina, who are connected to the place. How do we then merge all that expertise to reimagine a uniquely Native Hawaiian economy
Mhm.
that is able to live in this world and to succeed in this world? And that's where I think like bringing all these Hawaiian experiences together is an opportunity to recreate and reinvent as, things are falling apart with the United States and capitalism seems to be eating itself alive. Like we should now take this opportunity to figure out how we're going to shift. Anyway.
I could talk about that all day. I completely agree. And that's as somebody with a lot of experience in travel and tourism.
Mm,
I've been in that industry for over a decade, and even then, I very I very much agree. I understand it's layered. I understand it's complicated.
right,
Yes, and it depends on how you look at it
right.
because it is complicated, but also not that complicated.
Yeah,
So it takes time for sure. But the bottom line is we definitely have options to be able to enable all kinds of experiences that are positive for Hawaii and for Aina. Because I know there are perspectives about like it can't be anything, right? Like it should be something that's helpful, which is the key. Part of the Hawaiian diaspora experience we hear a lot about from folks is kuleana. Kuleana is such a value and I mean much more than a value, but it's such a concept that to be honest for me, it took me a long time to understand. Like I knew, yeah, kuleana means responsibility, but it took me a long time to really grasp what that actually means, and what that actually means for me, and what that means for me as someone who isn't on the INA. So I'll say it like I was really confused for a long time. I thought kuleana meant that when I go to Hawaii, I will do things like go to the lo'i, obviously malama aina, and that's my kuleana, and then I go home. And I think other folks share that perception as well. But then I have learned so much over time that like no, there is so much more that we can do to fulfill our kuleana in and contributing back to Hawaii for the betterment of Hawaii. And that's what we're also trying to do at HD is help others who are looking to better understand what it means and then help them figure out what it means for them to exercise their kuleana to Hawaii, which often comes out to a conversation we're having a lot right now are like experiences or unique skills or something that they might have that they can
yeah,
offer even from afar, which does lean a lot on technology, which is why we use a lot of technology because it gives us direct access
right.
to the work and to each other. But that could be somebody who just jumps on a call with an auntie for like 20 minutes to help her figure out whatever she needs to
Yeah,
do. I mean, there's so many examples. It doesn't have to just be
yeah,
on Aina. It can be, but that all those things are connected in us to be able to really build that workforce development and like you're saying have like that sovereignty and that economy. We can totally do it. It's just going to take us some time, but yeah, it always starts with like giving other people an opportunity at the table to kind of
yeah,
explain like what they would like to bring. Again, innovation and refresh ideas, something that our kupuna valued.
yeah, yeah. Valued and did, and that was like, I mean, that was part of it within the context of like environment and and our values. Yeah, and just thinking about that really like excites me. Again, going back to that report, I was really irritated about it, and so I thought I was trying to think about like what else can you do. And I know, I mean, we Native Hawaiian community has been making a lot of great strides in sort of like redefining tourism so that it's more kinder, it's less extractive, it's more, really cultural and not performative culture. And so there's a lot of work being done in that. But if I think back all the way to like 9/11 in Hawaii, whenever, and these big crises seem to be happening more often and more frequent. Anytime that happens, like technology falls and our economy drops. And so there's got to be something else besides tourism and military, um, and then, of course, local government. And I know there's a lot of great minds out there thinking about it,
Of
but
course, yeah, I very much agree. We've talked about technology a little bit. I think there definitely is an opportunity, and of course, we want to be very careful and ethical about how we
yeah,
do that. But I do see that as a opportunity, and also just the work that like folks are doing in Hawaii already in terms of like with food sovereignty and kind of
right,
like covering the basics and re-indigenizing what it means to cover the basics of the things that we need. There's so much great work already happening there. For folks out here, there are so many Hawaiians out here who are doing really incredible things and learning similar
yeah,
practices with what they have and being resourceful. Like, for example, there are folks who work very closely with the tribes out here and to understand what it means
right,
to Malama Aina where they are. And so,
right,
because it doesn't have to just be in Hawaii. And then once you really deepen your understanding of what that means just in general and how to do that, then hopefully they can come home at some point and then they it's easier for them to be able to be right alongside everybody else in Malami
right.
Aina because they were already doing that from a different perspective. That's some of the work that we are that we are developing as well. We had a program we started last year or kind of piloted, that's Malama Turtle Island.
Mm,
Turtle Island is a phrase that you hear a lot of tribes refer to as part of some of the creation story, referring to
right,
the continent. And so we want to honor that by using that same term. So Malama Turtle Island out here means like all kinds of things. It means physically how to Malama the Aina, but also like to be. I mean, we're the settlers on someone else's land. So
mm-hmm,
understanding like the intersectionality of all these things and being able to learn from the stewards here, and then we can adopt that over into Hawaii where it's appropriate as well. So there's just so many folks who are already of in that mindset and figuring out like how can we learn better about how to take care of ourselves no matter where we are, so that at least for things like food or shelter, whatever it might be for basic human needs, that's something that we have like re-indigenized, and then we'll have to fill in the gaps for everything else as well.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm always amazed. Like there was a conference I had gone to, and a funder called me, and she happened to be Native Hawaiian. And because she saw my name, she called me. She's like, "Are you Hawaiian?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I'm Hawaiian." And so it was just, and her foundation was all the way on the East Coast, but it was just amazing. And she was doing some amazing and innovative work, being away. And she had always tried to like make connections with Hawaii, even though her foundation wasn't focused on Hawaii. And there's just I just get so impressed by the amazing work that Native Hawaiians go out and do, and you just never know where you're gonna bump into, another Hawaiian. It's you just never know.
It's so true. And now with like the access through technology, it's getting
Yeah,
so much easier to be connected with
yeah,
people. And it's so funny to me because after doing this work for a few years, I have like forgotten where I originally met people in certain spaces or if they met each other. And then there was a convention out here recently where a lot of us were gathering, and it was just so cool to physically be in a space with other people that I've had lots of calls with, but
right,
couldn't remember like if other people had met each other before, and they hadn't. This
yeah,
was all through online, but
yeah,
still we built some really deep relationships, and it's just amazing because we're all across the globe.
right,
And that's exactly it's just so true to who we are, as a people, is like staying connected. And that's why access is such a big part of this work as well, because like we need to at least have the option to be able to find each other and to learn more from each other.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I guess, is there anything else you want to share? We're kind of running up onto our time where I promised I would let you go.
Oh my gosh.
Is there anything else you want to share about your work? Or again, we're just so excited to have you be a member of our board because you bring this perspective to change makers. And we're always trying to make new connections and new partners and learn new things and have different perspectives, because we definitely don't know everything, and And the other thing is we can't do it all. It's going to take all of us. And so, was there anything you wanted to sort of share to wrap up our conversation?
I mean, I could talk all day.
I
That's
know,
kind of the
right?
problem. I have to say, I'm just so impressed with the work that Change Makers is doing. So it's mahalo, but also it's my pleasure to be here to offer any insight that I can and build relationships, make connections, and just support the work that you folks are doing because it really is there. Yes, we're separated by distance, but again, like there is a bridge that we're building, and it actually is so important because it does affect somewhere down the line what we're doing, no matter where you are. So what I really want to do is like give my flowers and just say mahalo for the work you're doing and how I'm so, so, so excited to be here and to support. And then in terms for HD, I think this is just the beginning. We have so much work that we're working on. And I guess just asking folks to stay curious
Mm-hmm.
and to, especially those in Hawaii, because again, we don't mean to create a whole new set of kuleana. People are dealing with so much already in Hawaii. So we don't mean for this to feel like an extra sort of burden or pressure, just to stay curious, and that like that when the time is right, we all work together, and to help build each other up. So just yeah, we're just here. We like to have conversation and ask folks to stay curious and ask questions and build partnerships and stay connected, which is already something that we get a lot of interest from folks in Hawaii. Is there are so many amazing people who have offered to open their homes as a space where like people might stay when they're coming through, or offer to jump on a Zoom to share ike kupuna. It was
Nice.
just incredible. So just keep your eyes out is what I would say. We
Yeah.
have a lot of things coming around, and we're very excited to share.
Yeah. And you are, she's amazing social media. Um, I always love to
You're
watch her
so nice.
because I learn something and they're fun and they are, but they feel very familiar, and so you are on, so the Hawaiian Diaspora is on TikTok, Instagram, any place
Yes,
else?
it's just our handle Hawaiian Diaspora, all one word, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Our website is www.hawaiiandiaspora.org. We do have a contact us form in there if folks want to reach out, or they could email us info@hawaiiandiaspora.org. And actually, yeah, there was one thing that I wanted to share that you had brought up. So us all working together. One network that we have called Pilina Collective is something that we will be reviving this year, which is really just a group of anybody who wants to help in some way, shape, or form to do work that supports the Lahui and particularly those of the diaspora. And so this is a group of over 60 people who have all kinds of different strengths. We have artists, musicians, we have tech folks, all kinds of people who just come together to like on Zoom to kind of talk about what each other is doing, the work they're doing, how we can help each other, and really rely on each other as resources as well, and to have really good conversation. So that's something that if anybody wanted to join, we'd be super excited. And that information is on our social media.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. I might go check it out. Well, I definitely will go check it out. And I encourage everybody else listening to go and check it out and watch the work as it progresses, and jump in where you feel you fit best, whether it's like getting involved in the Hawaiian diaspora's programs, making connections with other Native Hawaiians, and or if you're not Native Hawaiian, if you want to support the work, then definitely reach out to Ipo and see how you can support through funding, which everybody needs. And it would be great to be able to have people come back to Hawaii to do sort of an exploration for a week and really, again, get grounded and then go back out into the world and take that gift with them and spread it, be ambassadors and spread it around the world. Because that's really the amazing gift I think that Native Hawaiians have for the world. So, again, thank you, Ipo, for sharing and for your time and talking story with us today. A wonderful rest
Mahalo,
of your day.
Alani.
Yeah, take
Yes,
care.
of course. Mahalo, aloha.
Aloha.